It was a normal Thursday afternoon when everything changed. In the heart of the city, Alex Carter sat in his sleek, modern office, staring at the large screen before him. His world, built on years of hard work, innovation, and ambition, was unraveling. The stock market had crashed, wiping out millions in a matter of minutes. Alex's empire, which once seemed invincible, was now crumbling. He ran a hand through his dark, slightly graying hair, his fingers trembling slightly. "This can't be happening," he muttered under his breath, his eyes fixated on the numbers rapidly descending. Beside him, Jim Miller, his trusted financial advisor, stood frozen, eyes wide with disbelief. "It's over, Alex," Jim said in a hushed voice, his own voice shaky, betraying the panic they both felt. Alex's gaze shifted toward the massive glass windows overlooking the city. The bustling streets below seemed distant, almost mocking in their normalcy, as if the world outside hadn't felt the tremors of his collapse. He stood, pacing across the room, frustration building within him. There had to be a way out, but each passing second, as the financial data continued to flash in front of him, made him feel more and more trapped. His empire, his dream, everything he'd built, was slipping away faster than he could comprehend. He turned to Jim. "How do we fix this? Is there any hope?" Jim swallowed, his expression one of defeat. I don't know," he said quietly, unable to offer any reassurance. Alex's heart raced, his mind spiraling. This wasn't just about money. This was his life, his legacy. He needed to act, but in that moment, he had no idea where to start. As the minutes ticked by, the weight of the collapse began to settle in. Alex's mind raced, unable to process the enormity of the situation. He stared at the digital ticker, his pulse quickening with each second. This wasn't just another financial downturn. This was the end of everything he had worked for. He thought of his employees, his investors, and the countless hours spent building his business. The tension in the room was unbearable. Jim stood next to him, trying to offer reassurance, but nothing could stop the avalanche that had already begun. "I need to fix this," Alex said, more to himself than to Jim. But as he looked at the screen, his resolve began to waver. "How do I fix this?" he muttered, as if searching for an answer in the flashing red numbers. The future felt uncertain, and in that moment, Alex felt completely lost. The days that followed were a blur. Alex, still reeling from the financial collapse, spent countless hours in meetings, trying to find a way to stabilize his company. But each conversation, each phone call, felt like a futile attempt to stem the tide. The weight of the situation began to press heavily on him, draining his energy and hope. His thoughts turned inward, questioning every decision he had made up until now. Should he have taken fewer risks? Should he have listened to the warnings from his advisors? But it was too late for regret. All that was left was to fight, to survive, if he could. A knock at the door interrupts Alex's thoughts. He doesn't look up, already knowing who it is. Sarah Bennett, his trusted business partner, steps in. "Alex, we need to talk," she says, her voice calm but firm. Sarah, age 40, is not one to sugarcoat things, and Alex knows that. She's always been the grounded one, the voice of reason. She stands in the doorway, waiting for Alex to acknowledge her. Alex lifts his gaze slowly, his eyes filled with frustration. "What's the point, Sarah?" he says, his voice sharp. "It's over. The damage is done." But Sarah doesn't back down. "It's not over yet. You still have a chance. We just need to figure out how to turn this around." Her words, though hopeful, feel hollow in the face of such devastation. But Alex nods, his desperation pushing him to listen. As the conversation continues, Alex realizes that Sarah is right. There's still a chance, but it's slim. Together they begin to formulate a plan. The hours stretch into the night as they work to salvage what's left. But as Alex looks at the financial documents before him, he He can't shake the feeling that time is running out. He wonders if it's too late to fix everything, or if he's already past the point of no return. But Sarah doesn't let him give up. "We're not done yet," she says with determination. "We'll find a way." Alex Carter sat in his private office, the weight of the recent collapse hanging over him. The once thriving business now seemed like a distant dream. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the empty desk across from him. His thoughts raced back to the early days of his company, when everything was full of hope and potential. Those were the days when he could see the future unfolding, the excitement of growth propelling him forward. Now, the future felt uncertain, darkened by the financial disaster that had shaken him to his core. He had come so far, and yet it seemed as though everything was slipping through his fingers. In that quiet moment, the anxiety was overwhelming. The room felt too small, the walls closing in on him. He thought about his team, his investors, and most importantly, his family. How could he explain this to them? How could he face them knowing that his failure could ruin everything? His fingers drummed nervously on the desk. It felt like he was falling, fast and far, but he still had to find a way to stop the descent. The next day, Alex met with his mentor, Greg Moore, at a small cafe near his office. Greg had once been a titan of the financial world, revered by many, but his fall from grace had been just as spectacular. As they sat down, Greg's face was hard to read, his eyes distant. "Alex," Greg began, his voice calm but with an edge of regret, "you're at a crossroads now. I've been where you are, and I can tell you, it's never easy to face the wreckage, but you're not defeated yet. You're just in the eye of the storm." Alex listened, feeling the weight of Greg's words. His mentor's voice was steady, but there was a sense of caution in it. "The financial world is ruthless. I didn't get here by playing it safe, but I lost everything because I took it too far. And now it's your turn to choose." Greg's advice was meant to be empowering, but all Alex felt was the pressure of the decision before him. Could he go down the same path as Greg, risking it all for one final shot? Or would he back down, save what he could, and try to rebuild? Alex couldn't stop thinking about Greg's words as he left the cafe. The idea of risking it all again, of betting everything on a final deal, gnawed at him. He knew he couldn't afford to wait any longer. The company was running out of time. The creditors were already knocking, and if he didn't act soon, he would lose more than just money. He would lose his entire vision, the legacy he'd worked so hard to build. As Alex walked back to his office, the decision weighed heavily on his shoulders. He was still conflicted, fearful of repeating Greg's mistakes, yet driven by the need to save everything he'd worked for. It was the hardest choice he had ever made, but the more he thought about it, the clearer the answer became. He needed to act, no matter the risk. Back in his office, Alex sat down and called his business partner, Sarah Bennett. She answered on the first ring. "What's the plan?" she asked, already sensing the urgency in Alex's voice. He paused for a moment before responding. "I'm going to do it, Sarah. I'm going all in. One last gamble to save everything." Sarah's voice was calm, but Alex could hear the concern behind her words. "Alex, this could ruin everything." "Are you sure?" He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath before replying. "I don't have a choice, Sarah. If I don't take this risk, I'll lose everything anyway." There was a long silence on the other end before Sarah spoke again, her voice steady but tinged with worry. "All right, but I need to be there with you, every step of the way. We'll figure this out together." Alex nodded, his resolve hardening. He knew it wasn't going to be easy, but with Sarah by his side, he felt a flicker of hope. The decision was made, and there was no turning back. Alex spent the next few days preparing for the high-stakes deal. He met with investors, strategized with his remaining team, and pored over financial data late into the night. The pressure was intense, and the stakes had never been higher. But Alex was determined. The fear that had plagued him was now replaced with a fire, a need to prove that he wasn't finished yet. As the final meeting approached, Alex couldn't shake the thought that this might be his last chance. He looked at the documents before him, his mind racing with calculations and projections. There was no room for error. Everything rested on this one deal. "This is it," Alex whispered to himself. "No more doubts. It's now or never." Alex Carter sat in his office, staring at the bank of screens that once displayed promising financial trends, but now showed sharp declines. The numbers flashing in red were a stark reminder of how quickly everything could change. Jim Miller, his financial advisor, had always been the trusted one, the person Alex relied on for his guidance. But something wasn't right. A nagging feeling had been growing inside him. Something wasn't adding up. His eyes moved from screen to screen, scanning reports, when a sudden realization hit him. The losses were too consistent, too coordinated. Jim had been in charge of overseeing some of the high-risk investments that had failed, but these numbers didn't match up. With dread, Alex dialed Jim's number. His hands shook as he waited for the call to connect. The betrayal was too close, but could he confront Jim about it? He had trusted him like a brother. The phone rang. When Jim Miller finally answered the call, his voice was unsteady. "Alex, what's wrong?" he asked, as though unaware of the impending confrontation. Alex took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "Jim, I've been looking over the numbers. Some of these transactions don't add up. What's going on?" Jim hesitated, and the silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "What do you mean?" Jim asked, his voice now sounding strained. Alex's suspicion only deepened. "You've been running some of these risky deals, and the losses aren't just bad luck." "Something's off, Jim," he paused, then added, "Are you siphoning funds from the company?" The question hung in the air, and Alex could feel the tension radiating through the line. Jim was quiet for too long, and Alex's heart pounded as he awaited the truth. Jim finally spoke, his voice soft and filled with an edge of regret. "Alex, I didn't mean for it to get out of hand. It started small, just shifting a few funds to cover some short-term losses. But things spiraled." Alex's stomach twisted. The betrayal was more than he had imagined. Jim wasn't just involved in the company's downfall. He had been its architect. "You've been stealing from the company, Jim." Alex's voice was shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. Jim's tone became defensive. "It wasn't like that, Alex. I was trying to protect us. The markets were bad and we were running out of options. I never meant for it to go this far." But the damage was done. The betrayal was clear. Alex had been duped by the one person he had trusted the most. The conversation ended with a heavy silence as Alex put the phone down, his mind racing with the implications of Jim's confession. There was no going back now. The next few days were a blur of meetings and frantic calls. Alex couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, the gnawing suspicion that Jim had been planning this for much longer than he let on. With his back against the wall, Alex had no choice but to bring in Fiona Hayes, a whistleblower who had once worked within the company's legal department. Fiona had always been someone Alex trusted, even though she had left the firm a year ago under mysterious circumstances. Alex met her at a small cafe. The atmosphere tense? "Fiona, I need your help. Jim Miller has been stealing from the company, manipulating funds. I need to expose this before it's too late." Fiona's face showed a mix of concern and skepticism. "Are you sure? This could destroy everything." Alex nodded. "I don't have a choice. I need you to help me find the proof. We have to end this before Jim ruins us all." Fiona agreed to help Alex, but the process was slow and fraught with danger. They worked in secret, gathering evidence while keeping their efforts hidden from Jim and the rest of the company. Late into the night, Alex sifted through the company's financial records, discovering more discrepancies. It was worse than he had thought. Jim had been siphoning off large sums of money, funneling it through shell companies. Every document felt like a weight on Alex's shoulders. As he sat at his desk, staring at the evidence, a wave of guilt washed over him. Had he been blind to the signs? Had he ignored the red flags in his desperation to succeed? Guilt quickly turned to anger. This was not just about business anymore, it was personal. He was going to expose Jim and take back control, no matter the cost. The final showdown was coming, and Alex would make sure Jim paid for his betrayal. Alex Carter had been meticulously gathering evidence against Jim Miller for days. Every transaction, every dubious financial move had been documented. But just when Alex thought he had all the pieces, something unexpected happened. Fiona Hayes had managed to track down a hidden set of files that hadn't been flagged in the system. Alex's eyes widened in disbelief as he reviewed the documents. It wasn't just Jim who was involved. There was a hidden network of shell companies linked to high-ranking individuals within the financial world. People Alex had never suspected. His heart raced. This wasn't just a betrayal by Jim Miller. This was a conspiracy that went deeper than he could have ever imagined. The stakes had just been raised. Alex could no longer just expose Jim. He had to take down an entire corrupt system. The realization hit him hard. This wasn't just about his company anymore. This was a fight for everything he believed in. Fiona Hayes had always been known for her meticulous nature, and now her ability to dig through corporate records had uncovered something far more insidious than either of them had expected. "Alex, you need to see this," she said, her voice tense over the phone. "This is bigger than Jim. It's a web of corruption. High-ranking officials, executives from other companies, they've all been involved in this." Alex's breath caught in his throat. "Who else is involved?" he demanded, his mind racing. Fiona paused before responding. "I'm sending you the files now. You need to act fast." The words hung in the air like a dark cloud, and Alex realized that the game had changed. It wasn't just his company's future at stake anymore. It was a battle for justice. But with the weight of this revelation came a new, terrifying realization. Exposing these individuals would not only ruin his career, but could also put his life in danger. Alex knew he had to act quickly. Time was running out, and he couldn't let the conspiracy unravel any further. With Fiona's files in hand, he set up a meeting with Sarah Bennett. She was the one person he trusted to help him navigate the next steps. They met in a quiet corner of a local cafe, away from prying eyes. "Sarah, this is bigger than we thought," Alex said, his voice low and urgent. "Jim wasn't working alone. There's a whole network of people involved, people with power. If we don't expose them now, we might never get the chance." Sarah looked at him, her brow furrowing with concern. "Alex, are you sure you're ready for this? If we go public with this, it could destroy everything. Your reputation, our company, but more importantly, it could make us targets." Alex's gaze hardened. "I don't have a choice, Sarah. If we don't stop this now, no one will." As they formulated their plan, Alex couldn't shake the feeling of dread. The deeper they went, the more dangerous it became. The network of corruption had its fingers in every part of the financial world, and the more Alex uncovered, the more he realized how far-reaching it was. He couldn't do this alone. He needed Sarah, Fiona, and anyone he could trust to help him bring down the people behind it all. But as the meeting drew to a close, Alex's phone buzzed. The text message that appeared on the screen sent a chill down his spine. It was a warning. "Stay out of this, Alex, or you'll regret it." It was from an unknown number, but the message was clear. Someone didn't want Alex getting any closer to the truth. It was a reminder of the stakes. This wasn't just a corporate battle anymore. It was a fight for survival. The weight of the message stayed with Alex for days. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, that every step he took brought him closer to a danger he wasn't prepared for. But despite the fear, Alex knew he couldn't back down. He had uncovered the truth. and now he had to expose it. With Fiona's help, they prepared to leak the information to the press. But just as they were about to take action, something unexpected happened. Sarah called him, her voice trembling. "Alex, you need to come to the office now." When Alex arrived, he found the office ransacked. Documents were scattered everywhere, and his computer had been wiped clean. The message was clear: they knew what Alex was planning, and they were willing to go to extreme lengths to stop him. Alex's pulse raced, but his resolve only strengthened. He was not going to be intimidated. The days leading up to the final confrontation were filled with tension. Alex Carter had taken every possible step to prepare, but nothing could have prepared him for the emotional weight of what was about to unfold. Armed with the damning evidence, Alex had arranged a high-stakes meeting with the key players who had manipulated the financial systems. He sat in the boardroom, alone at the head of the table, waiting. The air was thick with anticipation. As the door creaked open, Sarah Bennett walked in, followed by Fiona Hayes. Both of them had risked everything to help Alex get to this point. "Are you ready?" Sarah asked, her voice steady, but Alex could see the doubt in her eyes. He nodded, his face a mask of determination. "We have no choice now. It's time to take them down." The tension in the room heightened as the door opened once again, and the corrupt figures Alex had once trusted stepped inside. The final showdown was about to begin. As the corrupt executives entered the room, Alex's heart began to pound. His mind raced, recalling all the sleepless nights spent gathering evidence and preparing for this moment. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. This was it. The moment he either took back control or lost everything. The leader of the corrupt group, a man named Michael Stevenson, walked up to the table, a smug smile on his face. "You've made a mistake, Alex," he said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "You think you can bring us down? You don't have the power to stop what's already in motion." Alex met his gaze, unwavering. "I'm not here to negotiate, Michael. I'm here to expose you for what you are." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. The battle for control had begun, and Alex was determined to win. The conversation grew heated. Michael Stevenson scoffed at Alex's accusations, his words dripping with contempt. "You think your evidence will hold up in court?" he sneered. "We've covered our tracks too well. You're just a small player in a game far beyond you." Alex felt the anger rising in him, but he held it back. This wasn't about personal revenge. It was about exposing the truth. "I don't need to win in court, Michael," Alex said, his voice cold. "I have what I need to bring this into the public eye, to the press. And once people know the truth, you're done." Michael's face twisted in rage, but there was fear in his eyes now. He knew Alex wasn't bluffing. Alex had them cornered. Fiona stepped forward, holding up the files that contained all the evidence. "The truth is undeniable," she said. "You're finished." As the confrontation unfolded, the room seemed to close in around them. Alex could hear his own heartbeat in his ears, his pulse racing as the weight of the moment settled in. Michael's facade was crumbling, but the final blow had yet to land. "You think this is over?" Michael spat, his voice rising. "You have no idea who you're up against. We control everything. If you expose us, it won't just ruin you, it'll ruin your entire family, your friends, everyone you love." Alex froze, the words cutting deeper than anything he had expected. He had known this battle would cost him, but hearing those words made it real. For a moment, doubt crept in. But then he remembered why he had started this fight in the first place. He wasn't fighting for revenge or greed. He was fighting for justice. "I'm not afraid of you, Michael," Alex said, his voice firm. "You've already lost." In the final moments of the meeting, Michael Stevenson knew he had lost. The walls were closing in, and there was no way out. He tried to make a final attempt at negotiation, offering Alex a deal, But it was too late. The evidence was undeniable, and the public was going to know the truth. "You've won, Alex," Michael muttered, his voice defeated. "But you won't walk away unscathed. This isn't over." Alex met his gaze one last time. "It is for you," he replied, his voice firm and resolute. With that, Alex, Sarah, and Fiona stood up, leaving the room behind them. The war wasn't over, but Alex had taken the first step toward redemption. He had exposed the truth, and no one could take that away from him. As they walked out of the building, the weight on Alex's shoulders felt lighter, but he knew the fight wasn't over yet. There would be more battles to come, but he was ready. Weeks had passed since the confrontation that changed everything for Alex Carter. The media had caught wind of the corruption within the financial world, and the story had spread like wildfire. Alex was now the face of a movement, a symbol of resilience against the corrupt elites who had once controlled everything. But the emotional toll was starting to show. He stood in his office, looking out over the city that had once been his playground, now feeling like an unfamiliar world. The victory was bittersweet. The battle was won, but at what cost? The company was saved, but Alex had lost pieces of himself along the way. His family had been hurt by the fallout, his relationships strained, and the weight of the truth had become heavier than he had anticipated. Still, he knew that the change he had sparked was worth it. But as he gazed out the window, he wondered, was it really over? Or was this just the beginning of something even more challenging? The following days were filled with meetings, apologies, and promises to rebuild. Sarah Bennett, ever the steady hand, had been instrumental in holding the company together. She sat in the conference room across from Alex, her expression serious. "We've made it through the worst, Alex, but we need to focus on rebuilding, on earning back the trust of our investors and employees. We can't afford to lose sight of the future." Alex nodded, his thoughts elsewhere. "You're right," he said softly. "But everything feels so different now. How do we move forward from this?" Sarah looked at him, her eyes filled with understanding. "We take it one step at a time, Alex. We can't undo the past, but we can shape the future." Alex looked down at his hands, still trembling from the weight of what he had done. He knew it was time to move on. But was he truly ready? Fiona Hayes had been quiet since the final confrontation. She had played a critical role in bringing the truth to light. But now, she found herself questioning what was next for her. Sitting in a small cafe, Fiona stared at her cup of coffee, her thoughts drifting. Alex had offered her a place in the company's new vision, but she wasn't sure if it was the right choice. She had lost so much in the process, and now the world knew her secrets. "But was it worth it? You did the right thing, Fiona," Sarah said, joining her at the table. The truth needed to be exposed. "You've made a difference," Fiona sighed, looking up at Sarah. "I don't know, Sarah. It's hard to feel like it was worth it when everything I've known has changed. And I don't know if I want to be part of a company that has this much history." Sarah gave her a reassuring smile. "Change isn't easy, but it's necessary. You've done something bigger than yourself. Don't forget that." A few weeks later, Alex sat alone in his office, reflecting on everything that had happened. The company was recovering, but the scars of the past still lingered. The media frenzy had died down, but the whispers in the industry had not. As he scanned through the latest reports, a sense of unease settled over him. The fight had been worth it, but now he wondered what the future held. "What's next for us?" he asked himself aloud, his voice echoing in the empty room. He had won the battle, but the war for the company's soul was far from over. The new leadership needed to prove they could avoid the mistakes of the past, but Alex knew it wouldn't be easy. "I won't let them destroy everything," he whispered to himself. It wasn't just about the company anymore. It was about protecting everything he had fought for. But was it too late to save it? As Alex left his office for the final time that day, he walked down the empty halls of the building. The echoes of his footsteps seemed to reverberate in the quiet space, as if the building itself was holding its breath. The past had shaped him, and the future was still uncertain. But he had learned something important through all the trials and betrayals. No matter how high the stakes, he could stand tall. Alex had sacrificed so much, but in the end, he had saved his company, exposed the truth, and most importantly, found his own strength. As he stepped outside into the cool night air, he looked up at the stars. For the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of peace. The fight wasn't over, but he was ready for whatever came next. The day had arrived. The final chapter of Alex Carter's journey was nearing its end. He had spent months cleaning up the mess that had once been his empire, and the weight of his choices still pressed heavily on him. Standing in his office, Alex glanced out the window, watching the city bustle below, unaware of the deep internal battle raging within him. The media had largely moved on, and the company was stable once again. But for Alex, the cost of this victory had been far higher than he had imagined. His relationships had suffered, his trust in others had been broken, and in his pursuit of justice, he had lost parts of himself. Alex could feel the deep ache of what had been sacrificed. He was no longer the idealistic man who had once dreamed of changing the world. Now, he was someone who had learned that the price of doing what was right often came at a cost too high to measure. But as he stood there, alone with his thoughts, a sense of resolution settled over him. It had been a hard journey, but at least he had won something back, his integrity. It was time to move on, to find something new, even if he wasn't quite sure what that would be. The next day, Alex met with his mentor, Greg Moore, to reflect on everything they had gone through. Greg, who had fallen from grace himself, understood the depths of Alex's internal conflict. "You did the right thing," Greg said quietly, "but don't let it consume you. The cost of doing the right thing isn't always clear until after the fact." "You can't keep carrying that weight forever, Alex." Alex nodded, but a part of him resisted Greg's advice. Could he ever truly leave the past behind? "I don't know how to move forward," Alex admitted. "It feels like I've changed too much to ever go back to the person I was." Greg smiled faintly. "You don't need to go back, Alex. You just need to keep moving forward. The world keeps spinning whether we're ready or not. It's up to you what you do next." Alex looked down, a small spark of hope igniting within him. It wasn't easy, but Greg was right. There was still a future ahead of him. Weeks passed, and Alex found himself back in the heart of the company. He was no longer the same man who had built his empire from the ground up. He had been reshaped by his experiences, hardened by betrayal, and softened by the lessons he had learned. The company had healed, but Alex knew that nothing would ever be the same. He sat at his desk, reviewing reports, and for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of purpose. The fire that had once burned bright within him, driving him towards success, had dimmed. But now a new fire burned, one that was less about personal ambition and more about building something meaningful. The future was uncertain, but Alex had learned that life wasn't just about the destination. It was about the journey, and the people you choose to walk that path with. He glanced at Sarah Bennett, who had stood by him through it all. "We're ready for whatever comes next," she said, offering him a reassuring smile. Alex nodded. "Together, we'll make sure it's a better future." Later that week, Alex attended a public event, an awards ceremony for business leaders. As he stood there, accepting recognition for his role in exposing the financial corruption, he felt a wave of conflicting emotions. This moment should have felt triumphant, but it felt hollow. The applause from the crowd, the flashing cameras, it all seemed so distant. It wasn't that he didn't appreciate the acknowledgement, but he realized something. True success wasn't about the accolades or the recognition. It was about integrity, about staying true to one's values, even when the world tried to tear them down. He had learned that the hard way. As he gave his speech, Alex spoke not of his victory, but of the lessons he had learned. "This isn't just my victory," he said. "It's a victory for everyone who has ever fought for what's right, no matter the cost." Months later, Alex sat in his office once again, but this time it felt different. He had rebuilt his life and the company, but more importantly, he had rebuilt himself. He looked out the window, a sense of calm washing over him. The struggle had been long, and the road had been difficult, but he had learned that strength wasn't just about fighting. It was about knowing when to step back, to reflect, and to heal. His journey was far from over, but he no longer carried the weight of past mistakes or betrayals. The future still held uncertainty, but for the first time in a long time, Alex felt ready for whatever came next. "We've come a long way," he said softly to himself, and with that, he turned back to the reports on his desk, ready to embrace the challenges ahead with a renewed sense of purpose and determination.